name is Matt Valley. Welcome to episode number 81 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Now, we've had guests before who have articulated the link between research and music. People like Mark Lowney and Leona Nodge and Elizabeth Salisbury, Ben Depke, Adam Conley, and others come to mind. But today's guest really integrates the two in some really creative, fun, and powerful ways. So Daniel Berkal is the SVP of Research at the Palmerston Group, based in Toronto, Canada, where he's been for the past 14 years or so. That's a good run. And what's interesting about Daniel is he toyed with the idea of a career in the music industry before settling on a start in advertising. So he has worked on some of the coolest projects ever, much cooler than you and I typically work on. Research has taken him all over the world. So I'm super excited to dig into all that and more on today's podcast. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well. Obviously, I'm festive here, filming this around the holidays. My wife has started to put up the decorations. So here you go. Up here is a picture of me in high school, back in my hair days, by the way.
Isn't that interesting? For those of you listening to the podcast, it looks different. Let's just say that. I'm not going to explain it better than that.
All right, cool. Well, I am very excited to dig into this. You've got some really fascinating perspectives on the integration of music and research. So let's start here. So tell us a little bit about your career journey, how you ultimately found your way to research, and a bit about what you're doing now.
Cool. In school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I don't think many of us do in this business.
Yes.
I went with psychology. I ended up going to grad school for advertising because it felt like a good area to be in. I like being creative, but I kind of chose where I went to school based on the music scene in the cities where I was going. So I was always into music. I played in bands, I DJ'd a bit, and I went to school in Montreal for a while, and then I chose to go to grad school in Austin because it's this incredible music market, right?
That would be Austin, Texas, not Austin, Minnesota, right?
That Austin, Minnesota, I'm sure has good music as well.
They do. Yeah, they've got a heritage there. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, exactly. It's Austin, Texas, and it was a wonderful place to go to school. The program was incredible. I went into advertising. I learned about planning and strategy, and I really enjoyed it. But during my internship search, I had looked up for my thesis a company in Los Angeles that did music supervision. And I was very interested in that. And they offered me an internship, and I was like, cool. And so I moved to LA for a while, and I worked in music, and that was my dream. I always wanted to work in music. But when I started working in music, I realized I didn't like it quite as much as I thought I would. And I think when you love something that much, you get blinded by your love of the topic as opposed to working in that topic. But so I went back to advertising, ended up building a career in advertising. But the question was, how did I get into research?
Right.
And I had a recruiter call me one day and say, Daniel, I have a job for you, potential job. And I'm like, I'm happy in advertising. I don't want a job. And she said, you know what? Take this interview. You owe me a favor. Just trust me. I go to the interview. It's at a research company. And I'm like, I don't work in research. I'm a cool advertising person. I don't want to work in market research. I asked them, I said, if I take this job, why should I work here? And they said to me, if you work with us, you'll get a chance to travel the US and travel the world. And I had never really traveled that much before. And I was really interested in that piece of it. And so, and my Rockstar dreams of traveling around doing concert tours kind of came to mind. And so I took the jump and I went into qualitative research, became a moderator. And that was like half a lifetime ago, but I've been doing that since. And we can talk in a number of angles about why I like it so much, but that's kind of my route into the business.
Yeah, yeah, that's really fascinating. So I'm always curious to know, like, I can see it, right? I can see why somebody who has a background in advertising would make a good researcher. But what was it about you that they said, yeah, we really want this guy on board?
It's hard for me to put words in their mouth. I mean, but I think of things in a very different way. I think that is the music element of it. I think of things in terms of segments of songs or in melodies or in rhythms.
Right.
And I actually think that part of it is really interesting in the qual space, because qual is kind of a set amount of time, a set amount of bars, and
Yeah,
I think that that language works very well, but I'm just putting my own thoughts into what their thoughts were. Maybe they
sure.
just thought it was nice. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the Palmerston Group and the kinds of things you work on now.
Cool. We work on I don't say this lightly. We work on the coolest things in the world.
Yeah.
Like we're a boutique fall shop. We only work in fall. We do lots of ethnography. Before the pandemic, I used to tell friends that I travel the world and talk to strangers. It's kind of
Uh-huh.
exactly what I did. The pandemic made it a bit more zoomy, but that's starting to change now. But every day is a different thing. So like today, for example, today's what day is it? Thursday. I'm working on a telecommunications project, doing a World Cup thing later on this week for a
Oh,
client, doing a project next week on a an art collective. We do different things every day, and I like
cool.
changing that channel. And it's just like when you're it it's like a playlist almost, right?
Yeah,
And you're not really sure what track's gonna come next and what you'll like about that track. But I geek out over this stuff, and
yeah,
I know you do too. I've heard your podcast before, um, and I think that's why I'm really enthusiastic about being here, because I feel that, like, even though we don't know each other well, I feel you're my people, and I feel
yeah,
that this is kind of like my people.
yeah. Right on, right on. So I'm kind of curious. So coolest projects in the world. Um, w- Give us an example of one maybe that's like super memorable for you that was really fun or really unique or
Well, there are a number of most projects we work on. I can't talk about it in detail because of
sure.
confidentiality, but a number have been published and a number have been awarded. And like things that make me very proud. Years ago, we did a project for a client in the convenience store space, and so
Okay.
instead of going to interview people about convenience stores, which doesn't really tell you much because people can't remember or they go in at weird hours, we decided that myself and some of my colleagues would get jobs working at convenience stores. And so I literally worked behind the counter, a 24-hour convenience store in Nevada, in Washington State, in Iowa. And we learned about the environment from that perspective. That
Yeah.
project, love. We've done projects for one of our clients was Cirque du Soleil. We did projects for them involving guests going to Las Vegas and how they perceive the environment. But it's difficult to study a person in Las Vegas because they don't remember, they might be intoxicated, they
Yeah.
don't want to be researched. And so we designed a methodology around in limo arrival interviews and meeting up with them at weird times and having them
Yeah.
test out over a 72-hour period. And we called that Project 72. That one I like too. I have quite a number of really interesting kind of, I'm a good dinner party guest, put it that way.
I guess so. I love that idea of getting a job at a convenience store. So do you get to double dip then? So you get your salary at the convenience store, and then obviously you get paid by the client. I mean, it's
Uh,
perfect.
so I guess you could. We didn't double dip. We ended up quitting our jobs at the convenience
Yeah,
store before we got paid, but and we didn't take any money from them. Um, but I guess you could. I mean, what I like
I'm
about
kidding.
But what I like about this business, what I like about Qual especially, and what I like about innovative Qual is that there really are no rules. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, bread and butter is focus groups and interviews, but you can always change elements on where
yeah,
things are. You can add creativity. You can add your own kind of personality and your own taste to things. And that's where I think the music background really served me well.
yeah.
Because I like making sure that things don't always feel the same and make sure things have a movement to them and a crescendo and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You know, my training in research was very much quant, but over the course of my career, I've just really grown to have a deep appreciation for qual, and that, like you said, that's where the creativity comes from. I love talking to qual researchers about how they would approach things because they've got so many design ideas that are different. You know, they're outside the box and totally things you wouldn't necessarily think of. So
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can bounce that back to you and say that like what I find interesting about research is that everyone does think of things in different ways. And
yeah,
some of the creative folks I've worked with have been quant people who have built really smart design for things and really
yeah,
smart questionnaires. And I, just like in an orchestra, just like in a band, you need a good bass player, you need a good drum player, um, you need a whole bunch of elements to make a really good band. And I
yep,
think that the way research works. So,
yeah,
and it's not my place to say what role in that band I play. I'm not always the lead singer.
yeah.
I'm very rarely the lead singer, actually.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about music. So you grew up playing, you said you played in bands, you did some DJing. Tell us a little bit about where that came from and the kinds of stuff you were playing back then.
Yeah, no, I DJ'd poorly, but I played. I'm a piano player originally, right? So I played piano growing up. Ended up playing in bands, playing some guitar too because it looked cooler, I think. Um,
You didn't play
or
the guitar, did you?
I didn't, but I wish I did. Like in old cartoons, like in Gem and the Holograms, I loved the guitar player. I thought she was so like
It's retro cool now.
yeah, desirable. But like no, I played in lots of bands, mainly to make friends and hang out and I like performing. And again, as I grew older, when I got to around 20, I was at a decent level. I could play, I could hold my own. And where I was at, like in the world, I could play at a club uh, and get people cheering, and that was cool. But when you get to a certain level, you also realize that everyone else at that level is really good too. And then
Right.
it's not about your skill level as much as it is about luck or about
Yeah.
who's or about where it really can be chance. And that can be that's probably the reason why I didn't go into music.
Yeah.
That and I think there are money elements also. I think the
Yes,
like
that's for sure.
although I think Lady Gaga lives very well, and Taylor Swift probably lives well as well. I don't know if every musician has this steady income of a research person. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's a riskier proposition for sure, for sure.
yeah, and risk leads to bigger rewards, but I don't know. I think the real reason why I didn't go into music as a career is because I got to a level where everyone around me was really quite talented.
Right.
And I felt that I wasn't as good as everyone else. And when I moved to LA and moved to Austin, especially,
Yeah.
those are places where the scene is so good.
Yeah.
Um, in Austin, like the quality musician there is incredible.
Yep.
And in LA, like the best musicians in the world moved there to make music.
Yep.
And here I am, like some stupid kid from Canada. I can't play that. Um, and so I don't know, like you learn your lane. I see you smiling, like you totally get it as well, right? Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I get it on both sides. So when we talked before, you shared some thoughts on how you integrate some of the thinking that comes from music into how you approach research. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and some of what you borrow that you apply.
Yeah, I borrow lots of different elements, and like I do them mainly because, as I said before, I geek out over this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm a music kid to the core, and so I say kid, I'm like a middle-aged human, but I'm a, I feel that way. I feel the same way I felt when I was like a teenager listening to music, and
Yeah.
so
I can
because of that,
identify with that for sure.
yeah, like everything from logo design, when we put together presentations, I try to make them look like rock t-shirts,
Yeah.
or like some of my favorite logos of things. When I'm designing qualitative, especially before pandemic, when we did like um, multiple stop kind of in-person tours, I would design them as tours. I would have like
So cool.
riders for the facilities.
That's
Like,
awesome.
and I would go on like some of the websites, find like old tour riders and make requests of what to put in the back room and why. We'd craft gear for specific clients. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's a smart way of working because it makes it more fun too. And if
Yeah.
you have fun in your work and if you really enjoy it and you get the passion for it, then the product turns out better as well. Um, we
Definitely.
name we name projects after albums. I remember doing a project once where I named every part of the project after a Radiohead album. So there was like the Honey phase, there was the amnesiac phase, the Benz phase. Like, there were various phases. They all matched in my head to how I felt the kind of elements of that project were going.
Yeah.
A lot of this is just kind of games to make myself or my team more interested, but
Sure.
that works. I also think that in a discussion guide, you can plan out the rhythm of things. You can make sure that things have moments of tension and moments of release. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I think of a lot of these kind of elements in the way that I approach the most kind of basic task of my job as a quality. Um, because it makes it more fun, but also because if I understand it in that sense, I can really give myself into it and I can make it turn into something at the end that I'm proud of.
Yeah. 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 I'd love to work on some of those projects. So it sounds
We
like a
can,
lot of fun.
yeah, we can talk. Like I'm using like the cool kind of the sizzly things as bait to get you more excited, but like
Yeah.
often we work on projects for the CPG companies and we still try to infuse really neat elements to make everyone more engaged, more excited,
Yeah.
and even the way you walk into a focus group and say hello to a new city. Like think about a person on stage saying like, "Hello, Columbus,"
Yeah.
like, and you call out like one or two things about that town. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way I approach things when I walk into a moderation session.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. That's really cool. And that costs nothing, right? That's,
Cost nothing.
yeah. Excellent. Cool. So I'm really interested to know, given, the diversity of kinds of projects that you've worked on and, the, the ability to sort of stretch your thinking, as you think more broadly about, what's going to be important in the future of research, what that looks like, what comes to mind for you?
So I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to explain what's going to happen later on down the road. But from my angle, I see kind of two things really popping out. One is that clients are getting, our clients at least, seem to be getting sick of like the PowerPoint deck report, like the
Yeah.
5 to 50 page report. So they
Right.
either want things that are really short and succinct, like
Yeah.
the 1 page kind of summary or the 1 moment summary. But the other element of it, and that's for the physical report, we've seen a lot of clients want things more touchy feely that really showcase the work you're doing. So we've put together podcast reports for clients who are
Yeah.
busy. They're too busy to like read something, and so on their drive into work or on the train in from Westchester, they can like listen to a quick summary with people talking in their own voices.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of video elements be requested. So I think there's two routes. One's the more touchy feely, one's the more quick. That's
Yeah.
how I see things from the qual angle, but I don't have a crystal ball at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that really seems to parallel the way that people consume information now, right? It used to be, hey, everything is predominantly long form, where you're reading books, that's how you learn. But now there are so many more options of snippets, where you're, getting little bits here and there. You're just experiencing and learning in a different way, and it seems to fit with that.
Well, totally. If you're going down that route, actually, I mean, I see a huge area of qual specifically, where right now we're talking to our consumers in long form. We're talking to them in like the hour and a half or
Right.
hour interviews or groups. But we've had a lot of success with 10-minute interviews, because our not consumers, our audiences, like the people we're talking to, participants, they're all on TikTok all day. They're all
Right.
consuming short form content. So why should we not speak in that language? So we've had a lot of success running these 10-minute interviews, just bang, 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 3 questions, put it on video, put it into the script or some kind of editor, and make it really tight and present it back to the client. We can do those in a day. And the client likes it too, because it's short form. So I think speaking the language of your audience, your participants, your clients, and really being attuned to that and making sure that the work you're doing evolves is just smart business.
Yeah, it makes sense. I can see that it doesn't work for everything, right? Some things you really need to dig deep into, but certainly for, some questions, it makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we started touching on media there. So curious to know what kind of media you consume, for inspiration, insight, enjoyment. What's in your world?
It's funny. I'd love to pretend that I read lots of books. I don't. And like it would be pretending. And people ask you, what are you reading? I read lots of short form things. I read loads of like magazine type articles. I read loads of blogs. The internet's a constant stream. I'm on TikTok pretty much all day, like everyone else in the world now.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing quick things come back. And I love the way that engine really kind of fits your personality eventually and gives you things that you want. But I've been watching, like in the last year, I've been watching all these old TV shows that when I say old, I don't mean very old, but shows that people say were very good that I missed. So I ended up watching, like right now we're watching The Americans, which I never saw. And like, it's great. Or 6 Feet Under, we watched, and I love that. I've gotten really deep into sports I never thought I'd like. So like F1, I started watching with Madness, went to a bunch of races, and I think that always just being open to new experiences, that's kind of the way I look at the world. And so there's not a single thing that's really an influence of sorts. It's just always being consuming and always being open.
Yeah. I can sort of see a parallel there between, how you consume media, what you consume, and how you approach research, and how you think about that.
I think also my attention span is like a small animal, right? Like I don't have the ability to. I mean, I think I'm very good at what I do, but I think part of that is the fact that I'm really fast and I really kind of bounce, and that seems to have worked out well.
Cool, awesome. All right, well, this is a question I really want to know, right, Daniel? So this is one I hope you have thought about, because otherwise this could be a really long episode. But so let's say you find yourself stranded on a desert island, right? Stranded on a desert island. You have 3 records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days of your choosing. What are those records?
Okay, so a desert island, I probably would never be stuck on, but if I was,
you are.
I was.
That's the given.
I think, yeah. So I mean, I'd like to kind of think in my head that I'd want to get something really aggressive, like a Tool album, but like Tool's Enema would be really high on that list. But I actually think it goes in a different direction. I think that for me, it'd be Ryan Adams. It's hard to pick one album, but like.
Is that Ryan Adams or Brian Adams with a B?
Ryan, Ryan, like.
Okay. Now I was thinking, he's Canadian, so Brian Adams, there's the
yeah. Like,
okay.
no derision towards Bryan Adams, but I think Bryan Adams is an incredible super genius.
Awesome.
And like his 29 album, I love. I love Depeche Mode's Violator. That's a great album.
Oh, yeah, very nice. Yeah.
It's like a rock album with synths, which I really like.
Yeah.
That's 3, but I mean, I also like kind of weird, geeky Canadian pop. Like there was an artist, Gowan, from like the 80s. You know
Okay.
Gowan?
I don't.
So Gowan ended up getting a second career as the lead singer of Styx.
Oh, interesting.
But he had like a career before that, and like he had huge hair, and like he was flamboyant and interesting, and I like him.
Cool.
Not cool, but it's what it is.
Well, it's a new one for me to check out. So always love to hear that.
Strange Animal. That's the album that I would check out.
Okay. Okay, cool. Now, I just want to confirm, did you say Tool as your number one choice?
I think Tool would be my number one choice. Yeah, Tool.
Okay, got it. That's actually the first. I'm kind of surprised. 81 episodes. It's the first mention of Tool, considering how diehard a lot of Tool fans are.
I'm not a diehard Tool fan, but they have the best drummer in the business. They're
Absolutely.
They're melodic, they're aggressive, they're interesting, they're different, they're visual.
Yeah, cool. Awesome, great choices, really fun. Loved this conversation. Really appreciate and enjoy your perspective and the tying of research and music into one big bundle. So that's definitely speaking to me. So I appreciate that. So hey, Daniel, it's great to meet you. Let's definitely stay in touch and rock and roll.
Likewise, cheers.